Welcome back to this Principles of Economics course at ACC. Had been a lecture course, but is now being offered online. We are on topic 34, or actually, what is it? 32, I'm sorry. You see here the course's Blackboard site, and we can go to learning outline and objectives. We are in exam 3. I already have that open, and you can see here is topic 32, which I will be giving a lecture on right now. It's from chapter 9, and in fact, topic 33 and 34 also from chapter 9. And this pretty much wraps up our derivation of the supply curve, which we conclude with number 34, topic 34. And this topic, once we conclude topic 34, by the way, let's go back and take a look at exam 2. Topics 2, here we go. Actually, right here on market efficiency, that's where we're going to end up, is that that with perfect competition, there's allocative and productive efficiency. Social welfare is being maximized. Consumer and producer surplus is being maximized. Resources are being allocated to where they're needed, and they're being used efficiently and in those places. So that's where we're getting to. We started doing the theory behind supply and demand here with the behavior of economic agents in topic 21, where we said that people and households, business firms and households, behave in their rational self-interest. Business firms try to maximize their profits. Households try to get the most for their money. In other words, maximize their total utility, constrained by their income and the prices they face. In 22, 23, 24, and 25, we basically derived the demand curve based upon consumers acting in their rational self-interest, maximizing their utility. And then starting in 26, we started thinking about business firms and their behavior, and we've talked about profits, accounting, and economic profits. And just to remind you, in number 27, economic profits include all the opportunity cost of all the resources used in the production of goods and services. So very often that, in fact, is greater. Those costs are greater than the accounting cost, which are just the explicit cost. So economists want to take care of the implicit opportunity cost too. And we went on to analyze production in the short run, in which the law of diminishing marginal returns holds. And the law of diminishing marginal returns leads to an upward sloping marginal cost curve. Marginal cost rise as output increases after a certain point. And that's where we ended the second unit on, is right there at topic 31. And we're going to continue now in 32, 33, and 34 to derive the supply curve. So let's go to Aplia MindTap folder, and we are now in the third exam assignments in week 13, and we're going to be discussing 32, 33, and 34, deriving the supply curve. Let's get into that folder and take a look at topic 32. And I think, well, here's a PowerPoint, and I do think I have it already open here somewhere. Here we go. Here it is. And so let's go through the lecture. Actually, one more time. I need to go back and refresh my memory as to what the question says. Okay, topic 32. It says perfect competition. We'll have to explain what that is. Total revenue and marginal revenue. So explain, number one, why under perfect competition, each individual firm's demand curve seems to be a horizontal line when the industry demand curve is a downward sloping line. The second part to topic 32, construct a table with at least 6 rows that shows the demand schedule faced by a perfectly competitive firm. The table should have the following columns: price, quantity demanded, total revenue, and marginal revenue. So 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, okay, and 6 rows. All right, we'll have to do that. And the third part to topic 32 is explain the profit maximizing rule for perfectly competitive firm. Do not just give it to me. Explain why it is what it is. Use a graph with a perfectly competitive firm's marginal revenue and marginal cost curves on it to help with the explanation. Yeah, I think we can do that. All right, so now let's turn to the PowerPoint. And I'm not going to go to slideshow because I do want to draw on this if I need to emphasize something. So here we go. Market structure. And so I'm looking, I'm not sure why they have this picture of this young woman here, but she really looks like someone I dated in college. But oh well, nice to reminisce. And the textbook provided this PowerPoint, not me. So we're going to talk about market structure, and basically this is called I/O in the economics department, and it's the topic or that most students take most of their classes in. That is, I/O stands for industrial organization, and they get deep into the various types of market structure, of which there are 4 general parts. The ones that they mostly focus on are not perfect competition, but oligopoly is what most of the study in I/O is over. And that is where there are only a few firms in the industry, and they each have to pay attention to the behavior of their competitors, how they price their similar products, how they market them, what their sales tactics are, and that type of thing. But I/O is broader. It includes 4 general market structures, and I've brought this forward from a future chapter. There are 4 basic market structures, and they are perfect competition, which we're going to be concerned about here. And then at the other end of perfect competition is no competition, monopoly. And in between monopoly and perfect competition, there is monopolistic competition and oligopoly. Usually in class on the board, I would draw a scale, and you can either call this the scale of market power or a scale of competitiveness in the market. And as far as market power goes, let's put power sort of above. and the degree of competition below. So here there would be no power, and this is right at this end is perfect competition. And on this end would be great power as far as power in the market goes, and this would be monopoly. And as far as competition goes, much competition. For perfect competition, no competition for monopoly, okay? And so basically perfect competition would be the firms down at this end, and monopolies would be the firms down at this end of this scale, however you want to look at it as far as market power or competitiveness. In between are the other two market structures, an industrial organization, and typically this one is monopolistic competition, and this one here closer to monopoly is oligopoly. And this one here, the monopolistic competition seems like an oxymoron because it's monopolistic and competitive at the same time. But in actuality, this is the market structure that most of us are familiar with, like fast food restaurants, retail stores, stores on, where you can buy things on the internet, including Amazon, even though it seems more like an oligopoly. But so monopolistic competition, you just want to understand that competition is the noun and monopolistic is the adjective that modifies it. So it's mostly competitive. Oligopoly just means there are a few firms, and monopoly means there's only one firm in the industry. Here, there could be hundreds or even thousands for perfect competition, okay? So let's take a look at, before we go on, we will be taking a look at what happens to economic profit in the long run. And when there's competition, these profits are driven to zero. What's nice about the perfect competition is that if you put some measure of price and cost here and quantity here, and you have the average total cost here, is that competition will drive firms to the very lowest point of the average total cost curve. In other words, it'll be not only will there be allocative efficiency, there will be productive efficiency. And though we are not going to take a look at monopolistic competition, they will be usually driven here, but also they will have zero. That's monopoly, whereas monopolistic competition, zero economic profits too. So the two competitive firms have, zero competition, economic profits, because firms can come in and compete the above normal profits away, or if their average firm is losing money, they'll leave. Only in these two, oligopoly and monopoly, will you find above normal profits existing. So again, profits turn out to be a very important signal for the allocation of resources, which point I will come back to, and it's a very important point in economics. And the next few slides, I'll just quickly go over the characteristics of each one. So monopoly is where there's only one seller, as I said. The firm is a price seeker. It seeks out the price that will maximize profits. So it seeks out the price that will maximize profits. All right. Maybe I'll put that. Seeks out price that will maximize profits. It sells a product for which there are no close substitutes, and basically as far as allocation of resources, which we're really quite interested in, that's what economics, microeconomics is about, is how resources are allocated. So monopoly will stop the free flow of resources to their most productive use. This is a market failure. Oligopoly, which is just a few firms and is more competitive than monopoly, but still only a few firms dominate an industry. Maybe they have 50, 75, 80% of all of the business, the top four firms. So I don't think even Amazon has that. If you take a look at retail sales, I don't believe they have 80%, probably not even above 25% of all sales. Though some people are worried that they will have at some point. So there we go. And so there's co-respective behavior. In other words, when there's a few huge firms in an industry, saying producing automobiles or steel or marketing oil, they have to watch out for what their competitors are doing and respond to it. So there is co-respective behavior, and this is where game theory comes in industrial organization, is how these firms that respond to what others are doing behave. So the firms produce and sell either homogeneous or differentiated products, and basically if the product is going into as an input for other firms like steel or aluminum or some other sort of product like that, it'll tend to be homogeneous. But if the product is being sold to consumers like breakfast cereal or cigarettes or even gasoline, the firms will try to differentiate their product, even though they're quite the same underneath their apparent differences. There are significant barriers to entry. In other words, you would need huge investment in capital to produce steel or aluminum or maybe even electricity. And of course, we always assume that adequate knowledge is available, more so now than ever with the internet. And then the next one is monopolistic competition, which would be like McDonald's and Burger King and what are the other ones? In-N-Out. Anyway, there's a lot of different hamburger firms. That's an excellent example of an industry with that is monopolistically competitive. A lot of firms producing pretty much the same product. They're obviously differentiating themselves in the type of product they're selling and their location. But there are many sellers and buyers. Each firm sells a slightly differentiated product, and because of that, each firm has some wiggle room to charge a different price than its competitors without losing all of their customers, because customers tend to be loyal to firms that they like the most. And so the firms that they like the most could exploit them, I guess, quote unquote, by charging a slightly higher price for their products. I think let's talk about the grocery business. Many people used to think Whole Foods was able to do this, right? By differentiating itself from, say, Safeway or Randall's or Albertsons, um, and they can then charge a bit higher price. Or I guess Trader Joe's, or what is another grocery store? No, Walmart. Okay. And there is easy entry and exit. There are no barriers. Allocation of resources can flow to where they're needed. And then we have perfect competition, many sellers, many buyers, no one of which is large enough to influence the price. So if any buyer or seller leaves, the price of the product will be basically unaffected. Each firm produces pretty much a homogeneous product. Usually these are natural resources, whether they be extraction industries or farmers producing and selling corn or wheat or cotton, or fishermen selling fish. Many firms, the market determines the price. They are price takers. Where does it say that? And buyers have all the relevant information, so adequate knowledge. There's easy entry and exit. And actually, we said monopolies are price seekers. These competitive firms are price takers. In other words, the industry market, i.e. supply and demand, determines the price. And the firms can sell as much or as little as they want at that price. This is the big thing. This is the thing that really is going to be a big part of this section here, okay? And so then we go into here it is a price taker. The seller does not have the ability to control the price of the product it sells. It takes the price determined in the market. All right, excellent. And so essentially, here is the market, and here is the single firm, representative firm. Supply and demand determine the price. The firm has to accept that price, and it can sell as much or as little as it wants at that price. I always like to put little quotations around this demand curve and call it the as if demand. The real demand is here. It does slope downward and to the right. So if prices are higher, people will buy less. If prices are lower, people will buy more. But this demand curve is the as if, because the seller thinks he faces this demand curve. Because he can sell as little or as much as he wants at the market price. All right. So that's why I call this the as-if demand curve, because the seller treats this as if it is the demand curve he faces if you're a competitive firm. Okay, like if you're a farmer growing soybeans or sorghum. All right? Sell as much or as little as the market price as you want. And I think that we should get into this further because the first question says, why is this true? And we might go further and say, oh, let's try black because there's red. So what if the price were 10? Wouldn't the seller like to sell it at 10? Well, of course the seller would like to sell it at 10. But if the seller charged $10, let's say, for a bushel of wheat, and the wheat on the market was $5 a bushel, and the product is homogeneous, it's not differentiated, we can't tell the difference between one bushel of wheat and another, well, then the buyers of the wheat aren't going to buy this $10 bushel. They can get it for $5. So there'd be nothing would be demanded at $10 a bushel. Then that leaves us with this question. Well, if the seller wanted to, he could sell it at $2 a bushel. And this is certainly true. The seller certainly could do that. And the seller could sell as much as he wanted at $2. In fact, he probably couldn't produce enough for all the people who wanted to buy it at $2 because otherwise they would have to pay $5. But when you think about the idea that the seller wants to maximize profits, then you can come quickly to the conclusion that the seller, the farmer, the producer will not sell it at $2 a bushel. Why? Well, because he can get $5 a bushel for it. So his revenue and hence his profits would be much higher at the market price than at this below market price. But it is true, he could sell it for less. But there's no reason to sell it for less because he can sell as much as he wants at this market price. All right, so that's why the demand curve looks horizontal for the competitive firm. This is going to have very important implications for profit maximization. So here we have to define marginal revenue. And marginal revenue is defined as the change in total revenue, small change in total revenue brought about by a small change in output and quantity sold. Okay, so, I didn't have a table of 6 rows, which I believe the question asked us to do. I guess we could add 2 more rows. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Let's just add 2 more, 5 and 5. So this goes back to the slide up here where the market price is determined at 5, and this firm accepts it and can sell as much or as little as it wants. So the quantity it can sell, let's say at $5, it can sell 1 at $5, 2 at $5, 3 at $5, 4 at $5, 5 at $5, 6 at $5. And then the total revenue would be price times quantity, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So we get there to our 6th row. And the marginal revenue is the change in total revenue, which is 5, divided by the change in output sold, which is 1. And so that would be $5. And then the total revenue changes again by 5 when output and quantity sold changes by 1. So the marginal revenue is $5. Then he produces and sells 1 more bushel. Total revenue goes up to $20. Marginal revenue is 5 divided by 1. Whoops, I better put the 1 in there. And we get this. And essentially, that's true all the way down. This here is change in total revenue right here. And change in quantity is right here. All right. And I guess I can put 2 more in here, 5 and 5. All right. So notice the interesting thing about a perfectly competitive firm, and that is its price is identical to its marginal revenue. And of course, that makes sense because the additional revenue you get is equal to the price you sell the product for, and the price is always constant at the market price. So it turns out that the demand curve is also the marginal revenue curve for the firm. Okay? Interesting. All right. And this is going to be important for maximizing profits. So the quantity of output the perfectly competitive firm will produce. Well, the firm's demand curve is horizontal at the equilibrium price, which we've already established. Its demand curve is its marginal revenue curve, which we've also established. But here is the rule. To maximize profit, the firm produces that quantity of output at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And so right there is the quantity of output that will maximize total profits. And the reason for that, what can I do? We've got red and blue. Can we have a different color here? Let's see if we can't get a different color. What color should I choose? How about a nice green? All right. So essentially, if at the 50th bushel, and I'm not sure what this is, but let's just say the marginal cost of producing it is $1, and you can sell it for 5, you're going to be adding 4. And then you continue increasing your output, and as long as the price, marginal revenue, is greater than the marginal cost, you're adding to your profits. But notice, because of the law of diminishing returns, marginal cost is rising. The addition to profit becomes less and less and less and less. And then here at the 100th unit, I'm not sure, let's just say that's $3. I'm just guessing here. So now the firm is just adding $2 to profit. Now notice, many students get confused by this because they say, well, they're adding the most to profit here. They're adding less. Why wouldn't they produce here? Well, because they're still adding to profits here, and the firm wants to maximize total profits. In essence, these are marginal profits. The firm doesn't want to maximize marginal profits. The firm wants to maximize total profits. So the firm continues to produce as long as the revenue it takes in is greater than the marginal cost. And finally, right there at the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, total profits are maximized. If the firm increases output, let's say to 140, let's just say dash, 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 dash over here and say that that's $7. Well, the cost of producing that 140th bushel is $7, and it can only get $5 for it. So it is subtracting from total profits if it goes beyond this point, and it's adding to total profits if it goes here. So in essence, what can we say? That the firm, will increase. Maybe I should change this. Blue, what color can I pick here? Yellow, orange, purple. So the firm is increasing output here and decreasing output here to this point to maximize total profits. We could, let's go back to our pen here, we could draw a graph. Yeah, that's not so, I can do a better job than that, I think. Okay, So here's quantity as above, and here's money. And so right here at 125 bushels or whatever the firm is producing, the firm maximizes profits. And so this is total, this is a graph of total profits. And right at this point, at the very peak of the profits curve, marginal revenue equals marginal cost, okay? And marginal profit is zero. Basically, another way to put it is that the firm maximizes profits where marginal profit is zero, okay? So that is the rule for profit maximization. And here we go. Here's the rule, nicely given to us. Profit is maximized by producing the quantity output, which marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which basically says marginal, where marginal profit equals zero. You know, for, I don't know how much math you guys have had. Some, I hope. But basically, right here, if you take a look at the marginal change in profits, it's zero right here at its maximum. And I guess if you ever take a calculus course, you can find max and minimums by taking the first derivative and finding the max or minimum point where the marginal value, the first derivative, is equal to zero. For all of you who are taking math for business and economics or some calculus class. So for perfect competition, profit is maximized when price equals marginal cost. And that's because we saw earlier that price and marginal revenue were identical. And I guess, you know what, I think those three lines just say identical. Price and marginal revenue are identical. So we could also say profit is maximized for a competitive firm where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. However, for monopolistic firms, oligopolistic firms, monopolistically competitive firms, this will be the rule for them. And we can say it's the rule for competitive firms too. So if the rule in this form is true for every market structure. Only for perfect competition, as they indicate right here, can we say price equal to marginal cost. Okay. And so here it is. So basically, the profit maximizing rule is to adjust output to the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, with marginal cost increasing because of the law of diminishing returns, and marginal revenue constant. What we would have then is that if marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, the firm should increase its output. And that's back in this one. So all in this region from, let's say, 0 to 125, marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, increase it. I suppose, yeah, let's not talk about the cases where it might start above. And then, of course, for all points above, it should decrease production. So let's go back to that. And if marginal revenue is less than marginal cost, it should decrease output. So we've already gone over that in slide 12. Maybe I should say see slide number 12 of this PowerPoint, okay? And now we go to the firm supply curve. So if a perfectly competitive firm, for a perfectly competitive firm where marginal revenue is identical to price, if the price rises, then marginal revenue also rises. This is pretty obvious because price and marginal revenue are identical. Given that the marginal cost curve slope upward and to the right, and the rule for profit maximization that firms will produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, this must mean the firm will produce and sell a greater quantity of a good if the price rises. So here we say, if the price rises and you have some measure of cost and price here and quantity here and marginal cost here, well, if the price goes up like this, the quantity produced and sold will also go up. And basically we can say this is marginal revenue 2, and this is marginal revenue 1. So the firm, if the price is here, the firm will produce Q1. If the price goes up, the firm will increase output to Q2. All right, so it will produce more. And the next one, if the price falls, marginal revenue also falls. Given that the marginal cost slopes upward and to the right, and the rule for profit maximization that the firm produces where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and marginal revenue is the same as price, this must mean that the firm will produce and sell a smaller quantity of the good. So here, if we draw the curve with quantity here and some measure of cost and price here, and marginal cost rising, and here we have price 1 and price 2. Maybe we should use letters this time, A and B. And so this is marginal revenue A, and this is marginal revenue B, and the price is going down. Well, then the quantity, this is A, is right here, and this is B is here. The quantity produced and sold, and that's B, I should say, not 3. The quantity goes down. Whoa, okay, so we're almost ready to do the supply curve. So what is the firm supply curve? Well, the firm supply curve indicate that the marginal cost curve is the supply curve of the perfectly competitive firm that's trying to maximize its profits. All right? So this is approximately supply curve of firm. All right, we're going to modify this. It turns out that not all of it is the supply curve, but this is our first approach to it. And that is it for topic 32. Thank you, and I will see you when we start topic 33.